TikTok wants you to believe it doesn't juice its algorithms. It's just a coincidence that a relative handful of videos on the Chinese-owned social media company were promoting Osama bin Laden's 2002 letter to America, and they got tens of millions of views last week. Gotcha. Here's a quote from TikTok corporate spokesperson. We are proactively and aggressively removing this content and investigating how it got on our platform. The number of videos on TikTok is small, and reports of it trending on our platform are inaccurate. Boy, so they got millions of views without even trending. That's interesting. Credit due to the folks at TikTok. TikTok is a genius-level troll, an app designed to fit a generation's short attention span with just enough information to make them dangerous, and marketed to get the kids who can't get through a few minutes without seeing what's new to defend their toy like their lives depend on it. Now, it helps. And this is, I'm not yelling at the clouds of boomer because I'm not a boomer. I'm actually a Gen X guy. But it helps TikTok's cause that our Gen Z, the app's target audience, came of age in the No Child Left Behind era. No Child Left Behind stressed teaching kids how to take tests as opposed to developing critical thinking skills. So it's, education system failing. Here's a quote from one of the people whose video did not go viral because TikTok made it so. It only just got millions of views on its own. Lynette Atkins, she posted to her 175,000 TikTok followers, urging them to read the bin Laden letter. She said, I was 3 in 2001 and always taught that 9/11 happened because other people were jealous of our democracy in the U.S. Now that I'm older and able to learn about history beyond the narrative of mainstream media, I'm realizing there's more to the story. So she talks about you need to read the bin Laden letter. She could not have actually read the bin Laden letter because there's no way a Gen Z, let's see, she'd be 25 years old now, would agree with everything pretty much that bin Laden wrote in this letter. He wrote in a letter that Americans were servants to Jews, who he said controlled the country's economy and media, and that, quote, the creation of Israel is a crime that must be erased, unquote. He also instructed his American readers. This letter was written in 2002, about a year after the 9/11 attacks in 2001. He instructs his American readers to give themselves over in, quote, complete submission, unquote, to Islam, and to discard, quote, all the opinions, orders, theories, and religions which contradict it. So this is the message that our overgrown army of overgrown children who can't be bothered to look up from their phones are going to take it to the streets. So I hate to agree with Nikki Haley, but she's right. Ban TikTok. And this isn't just a Republican versus Democrat issue. Democrats agree. White House, President Biden's White House put a statement out. Democrats have been putting statements out on this. Ban TikTok. I mean, whatever. The kids are, of course, when us olds, and olds being anything over 30 at this stage, say that we need to ban something because it's being manipulated by a foreign entity that doesn't have our best interests at heart, and in fact has digressing interest there. The kids are just going to have the message reinforced to them that we're trying to keep the truth from them. Here's another quote from that Lynette Atkins lady. TikTok is going to save this generation. The amount of things we've learned on this app in the past month alone that other people and other generations I try to talk to learn about, they just don't understand. They don't get it because they've been so literally programmed to think a certain way. TikTok is undoing all of that. It's crazy to watch in real time. So there's that nonsense about bin Laden's letter from this Atkins influencer. I hate that term. Then another user went viral with a video pushing the idea that, quote, they have lied to us more than enough. And another one made the breathless claim that after supposedly reading a letter, quote, I will never look at life the same. I will never look at this country the same. Complete submission to Islam, kids. More from bin Laden's letter. We call you to be a people of manners, principles, honor, and purity, to reject the immoral acts of fornication, homosexuality, intoxicants, gamblings, and trading with interest. If you fail to respond to these conditions, then prepare for a fight with the Islamic nation. That's what this letter that has you never looking at life the same, never looking at this country the same, that you've been lied to all your life. That's what that letter's telling you. That's what the whole letter's telling you. Whole letter's telling you that. Now, the letter didn't gain traction, interestingly enough, in 2002 when he wrote it. I will have to admit, I didn't even know the letter existed until this controversy came up on TikTok. It's 21 years old. Bin Laden obviously thought this letter would get traction. He thought the 9/11 attacks would get traction. Nellie LaHood, a professor of security studies at the U.S. Army War College, was also the author of the Bin Laden Papers, which was an examination of the papers that the military seized from Bin Laden's compound after the raid that led to his death back in 2011. He thought, according to LaHood, that Americans would take to the streets and replicate the Vietnam anti-war protests and demand their government withdraw their military forces from the Middle East. He thought that's what 9/11 would do. He thought that we were waiting for something to ignite a powder keg, and that 9/11 would make us say, get out of the Middle East. He miscalculated there just a tiny bit. 20 years of war. Not that that was the right answer from us, but that's what he unleashed there. Just kind of like, I mean, let's throw it in there. Hamas leaders thought that attacking Israel back on October 7th would do something similar to Israel. That basically it would force Israeli citizens or push Israeli citizens to force their government to withdraw from Gaza and also the occupied West Bank. We haven't seen anything. In fact, we've seen the exact opposite in overwhelming numbers. So the sum effect of this controversy over the Bin Laden letter and TikTok is that what Bin Laden himself couldn't do, TikTok and its useful idiots, I guess is a term that is used in intelligence circles. TikTok and its useful idiots who are influencers are now doing for Bin Laden all these many years later. I'm going to wrap this up with a quote from Terry Strada, the national chair of 9/11 Families United, the group that represents the 2,900 plus, the families of the 2,900 plus people who lost their lives on 9/11. It really happened, kids, by the way. It really happened. That wasn't a false flag. Quote, it is appalling to witness younger Americans voicing sympathy from Bin Laden's dangerous and anti-Semitic worldview 22 years after our nation was horrifically attacked and our loved ones were callously murdered by Islamists who were financially supported by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and at Osama bin Laden's direction. That's what you can say. Juxtapose those words that I mentioned earlier from Lynette Atkins in our viral video. They don't get it because they've literally been so programmed to think a certain way. TikTok is undoing that. It's crazy to watch in real time. What she doesn't get, and what millions of you TikTok kids don't get, is that TikTok is, quote, undoing. What TikTok is undoing is aimed at getting you to be programmed to think a certain way. We can't agree on one thing. It's crazy to watch in real time. If you have any things for me to address, any topics to look at, anything at all, please email me at chris@augustafreepress.com.